Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast Five, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, we still keep it to 5 minutes, but we do things a little differently. We pick out the biggest story of the week, the sleeper story, one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, the most remarkable story, and then just generally our favourite story from the week. So let's jump straight in with the biggest story. What was it?
It's a huge week for inflation and inflation expectations and therefore interest rates. There were a few things this week that convinced market economists that the end of the rate hiking cycle is nigh. That would be exciting. Firstly, monthly inflation figures came in. What they really showed is that inflation peaked late last year, and there are plenty of signs that the pace of inflation will continue to fall. For example, retail sales figures this week showed that for the 3 months to the end of February, spending was down 1.5%. One of the worst outcomes in the history of the series. Also a fall in job vacancies. Not all one-way traffic here, Michael. Federal government's pushing for a big wage increase for the nation's 180,000 lowest paid workers, and the ACTU is pushing for a record 7% increase in award wages for 2.6 million workers. Going to be a very interesting board meeting at the Reserve Bank next Tuesday.
Yeah, sure will be. The biggest story for me this week, Sean, was just the fact that it was actually a really big week for M&A activity. The main event was the $18.7 billion bid for Origin Energy by Canadian giant Brookfield. Origin's board has accepted the offer, and interestingly, Brookfield has promised to invest billions to accelerate the decarbonisation of Origin Group. And just on that, this week was also a significant week in terms of politics because the federal government won the support it needed for its emissions reduction plan from the Greens to pass the Safeguard Mechanism legislation, forcing the country's 215 biggest emitters to cut pollution by nearly 5% each year until 2030. Origin Energy is obviously one of those. Plenty of other deals kind of being discussed this week. Liontown Resources received a bid from the biggest lithium company in the world, which sent Liontown's share price up a whopping 68% in one day. United Malt is set to be bought by the exotically named Maltery Soufflé. Funerals company Invacare rejected a bid. The bid for Helios by its smaller rival, Australian Clinical Laboratories, suffered a setback. Overall, big week, so much activity in the M&A space, and I just find that kind of thing fascinating.
Absolutely. Michael, what was your most remarkable story for the week?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Sean, because I think it's remarkable that Australia now has wall-to-wall Labor governments on the mainland. Complete Labor domination happened for the first time in history in 2007. Hasn't happened since then, but the victory in New South Wales last weekend by Labor, led by Chris Minns, now means the most senior Liberal in government in this country is Tasmanian Premier Jeremy Rockliff. It means that National Cabinet may be a slightly more one-sided affair. It means the union movement has a bit more power across most of the country, and it means really that the Liberal and National parties have a huge amount of work to do to kind of figure out what they stand for. Are they going to move towards the centre, double down on the conservative values, move out more towards the right? Good luck trying to figure that one out. It is going to be a very interesting time in politics.
Michael, my most remarkable story is the one about Clive Palmer seeking almost $300 billion with a B in damages from Australia in a case related to stalled iron ore projects and emergency legislation passed by the Western Australian government. Adding to the remarkableness is that the country's most recent former Attorney General, Christian Porter, is on his side. Palmer lodged a notice of arbitration via his Singapore headquarters Zeph Investments, seeking $198.2 billion in damages plus interest and costs under international trade law. He claims the law rushed through the West Australian Parliament in 2020 breaches the ASEAN-Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. The fact that Christian Porter, who knows all the ins and outs of government, is part of his team is quite incredible. It's $300 billion. Imagine that. That's about AUKUS, or that's about the amount that we paid in economic relief packages during COVID. Incredible amount of money, Michael. And a special mention here, of course, Donald Trump being criminally indicted in the US. That was pretty remarkable as well.
That is a huge, huge story, that one. All right, on to sleeper story of the week, Sean. Can I nominate one for this? I think I've got a cracker.
Sure.
For me, it was the judgment from the federal court that can override a key part of employment contracts or agreements. The ruling declares that employers have to ask workers if they want to work public holidays. They can't just roster them on anymore, regardless of what is in their contracts. They have to ask. So it's a sleeper story because it originated in the mining sector, a ruling really over BHP breaching the Fair Work Act by requiring miners to work on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. But other sectors will be paying attention. Big win for unions. And when you think about the sectors where workers are regularly rostered on public holidays like retail and hospitality and emergency services and healthcare, etc., the effects of this one could be absolutely huge. It is going to become a much bigger story further down the track.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. Look, Michael, I've got to nominate my favourite story, which I'm sure you'll agree with. All about actress Gwyneth Paltrow being sued by a skier over a collision they had at Deer Valley Resort in Utah back in 2016. Now, the trial took place this week. It will have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to run. Now, retired optometrist Terry Sanderson is suing Paltrow for at least $300,000 in damages for allegedly running into him while skiing. Paltrow countersued for $1 and attorney fees, claiming Sanderson ran into her. The critical point: who was skiing uphill and who was downhill? The unwritten code of skiing is if you're uphill, you stay out of the way. And all that being said, Gwyneth won.
All right, there we go. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Don't forget to hit follow. And of course, the Amazon Echo smart speaker range comes with Alexa built in. So you can simply say, Alexa, play the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed podcast to catch the latest episode. Get yours now at amazon.com.au. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed.